Hey, MarkMan, welcome to the podcast.
How's it going?
Hey.
Very happy to be here. I know we've been trying to talk for a minute, but really happy that we're able to talk and just talk about sneakers.
No, yeah, look, this is a long time coming. I remember first when the Moment 37 dropped, and I had J5 on the podcast, and we were talking about you and how you've been able to melt the two worlds of fighting game community, the FGC and sneakers, and that's one of the subcultures with the intersections where you don't really see a lot of it. Like even I try to reach out to like Yipes and like other people because in New York, I feel like fighting game community is it's hidden, but it's also very loud at the same time too.
Oh yeah, and fighting game players, fighting game community, when it comes to like people from urban youth, people that have been around since the 90s, since the arcade days in the 90s, there's a lot of culture there, and it's a lot of culture that crosses over from many different things. And one of those things that crosses over heavy is people's love for sneakers, people's love for fashion. And I think fighting game players and the community members, especially from the older school, and it kind of reflects on the new school as well. There's that trickle down effect. A lot of them are just into the culture of sneakers in general. So for a lot of these people, when they go out to events, when they show up on stream, they want to be dripped out. They want to be able to show up their best, not just in the game, but also how they look at the events. They want to, we have this thing at Evo that happens like every single year. We call it the secret tournament. It's not really a tournament, but it's just where everybody meets up and takes pictures together, the sneakerhead meetup. So that's how much we love it, is that we always keep that as one of the things on the checklist when you go to an event.
Next year, hopefully me next year. I'm gonna pull up.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be there. I'll be drippy as hell just to get top form in there.
There you go. You got to be top 8. We don't do awards or anything like that. We just take a picture. We just talk for a little bit. But I think it'd be great if we could get it to that level one day, just, as a side thing for the community.
That'd probably be the only pool I'll get out of.
You got to give yourself more credit than that. You got to be able to grind it out and play.
I mean, once I pick up Tekken again, I'm definitely going to be like, all right, cool. But I mean, the game's been out. I haven't been able to buy it. So I'm probably way too like under everybody's had the game for so long that I'm like the I'm trying to say, what's the word I'm trying to say? It's the I forgot. Everybody's just better than me at this point. They had the game longer.
You got to start somewhere. There's a lot of people that start in the middle of the releases of these games. And they're able to learn. I mean, you got to play, and you got to learn. So that can happen at the start when a game first comes out. It could be later on, as long as there's still people playing. And we just had the biggest Tekken tournament of all time. There are definitely people still playing.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I'd like to say we are welcoming for the most part. So if you are down to play, I'm sure you'll find somebody to play with.
All right, I'll pick it up. I'll pick it up next check. So, for people who are not familiar with you, my listeners are not familiar, how about you introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Mark Julio, also known as MarkMan. I'm in my day job, I'm the director of business development for Evo. Evo is one of the longest running eSports events in the world. It's primarily based around fighting games and competition. We have 2 events a year, at least. This year we had 2 events. We had Evo Japan, and then we had Evo in Las Vegas that just happened a few weeks ago. And I've just been a fan of fighting games. I love fighting games. Aside from that, I love retro games. I love sneakers. I just love collecting stuff. And I like to curate the culture. And, we have things like at Evo, we have the art museum, fighting game art museum. We have the arcade stick museum, which I'm really heavy into arcade sticks and specialty controllers and stuff like that. Anything that gives people a level of expression, that's the kind of stuff that's my jam. So I love that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
No, I mean, culture cultivator.
There you go. I like that.
Yeah, put that on the tag, man. Put that on the resume. But you're here to answer the question that I ask everybody each week, and that question is, what's your first kicks? What's that first pair of sneakers you absolutely needed to have?
Oh, so this one is a fun story because I know distinctly, and I remember it very, very well. It was back in '95, I believe. I'm pretty sure it was '95 or maybe '96. I was still in middle school, and the Air Jordan 11s came out. I started seeing people in school wearing them. I saw the Concords at first, and then the All-Star game came around in '96. I saw people with the Columbias, which I think they call them Legend Blues nowadays.
Yeah.
and I wanted them so bad. They just looked so different from all the other sneakers that were out there. They had the patent leather, they had the nice clean look,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember finally convincing my parents, all right, we're gonna get a pair of Air Jordan 11s, but we couldn't find them. We couldn't find them in my size. I was trying to find my size,
Mm-hmm.
and then that summer, the Air Jordan 11 Low IEs came out,
Yeah.
and I was like, whoa, what is this? This one has like mesh inserts and everything, and it feels like more aerodynamic and comfortable. Still has the 11 ID, the sole, and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And because I couldn't find the Concords, because I couldn't find the Playoffs, or the Columbias were long gone, I ended up getting those. Those are the ones I really wanted. And we didn't have it at the first store. It was I don't know if you remember this store. It was called Sports Authority. It was
Yeah, of course. I
a
remember
big
Sports
sporting goods
Authority.
store from
Yeah.
way back in the day. We went to Sports Authority, we went to Oshman's, and then we ended up finding it at a Foot Locker. We ended up finding it at a local Foot Locker maybe a few days after we made the decision to pick those up. And then I wore those. I rocked them at my middle school promotion, and they've been one of my favorite pairs of shoes since then.
I
So
mean,
much. I ended up hunting a dead stock pair. I still have my original, was it 1996 pair?
uh-huh.
I love that sneaker. So yeah, and they've
That's
brought it back so many times. I think the most recent one is the
Mhm.
only one that they kind of did true to form. So I'm glad that they brought it back.
Yeah, I mean that shoe is definitely I want to say it's a hood classic. I'm gonna call it a hood classic because I feel like I feel like they like once that shoe dropped, it was that default of I couldn't get the 11, so here's my consolation prize,
It's
and it's
exactly
that
it.
IE. Yeah, and it's crazy. I you haven't dragged like I mean I love it when the like younger sneakerheads who are not like getting into like they don't really know they're about to get into this world, but you're like I need to have this, so you just drag your parents around, and your parents willingly is down for that because so you don't hear that very often. I love that.
It took some convincing though. You got to, you're propositioning to your parents like, we have to spend $110 for this pair of shoes, and they're like, that's way more than a video game because I was really into video games at the time.
Mm-hmm.
It took a lot of convincing, and a lot of showing that I could get good grades and stuff like that. But it ended up working out.
Did you? So are you? Are you from LA? Like originally, where are you from?
I'm from San Diego, so about 2 hours south of Los Angeles. I've been in San Diego my entire life, so San Diego, born and raised.
San Diego, born and raised. What is like you? What was high school like for you? Were you the flyest in high school, or were you? I feel like me and you were kind of in the same boat, where it's like you either get in video games or sneakers, and I feel like that's like you can't have both.
Well, so I was into video games, but my parents were very strict about me playing video games. I only could play video games on the weekend. So during my normal daily routine for school, I was just focused on class and focused on going to school. A lot of that changed when I got a car. Right, I started ditching school. I started going and discovering competitive fighting games. But prior to then, I was pretty focused on my studies. I ended up getting good grades. I ended up doing the graduation speech in high school.
Wow.
And yeah, it's just I was a nerd for knowledge. So after that, I once I started making my own money, I really got into sneakers. But my parents, God bless them, they understood that sneakers helped with not just like going to school and like swagging out. It helped a lot.
Yeah, I mean that's dope. I don't know if you are a firstborn generation immigrant. Is that the right
Yeah.
term? Yeah, I don't know if you
From my
are.
family, I am the firstborn here in the country.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
and
So
yeah, I was gonna say like the idea of like pitching it to somebody who's just like, no, we come here for a better life. You don't need better shoes to have a better life. Like that is I don't know how you went about it, but like getting them to understand that like the idea of social currency and like
it helped that my dad and my mom were like, oh, that's cool, I want a pair too. They were that. So it helped that they wanted to try new things, and they wanted to try video games, they wanted to have cool sneakers and stuff like that. So it helped that they were open to the ideas.
Oh, that's sick. What was your first job?
So my first job was working at a smoothie place. It was called Juice Stop, and it was right across the street, or not right across the street. It was in a mall, and it was right across from the arcade. So in between making smoothies for people when it was dead, I would go to the arcade and play Tekken 3 or Tekken Tag 1 in the arcade. So it was a nice first job.
Were you like were you like the one when you pulled up, people were like, "Oh man," or is it like because it sounds like you were there pretty often, so it sounds like you were running people off the cabinet as much as possible.
You're not doing it right if you're not running people off. It was fun. Like, during my break time or during my free time at the mall,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I definitely I was a child of the arcade, so I
Mm-hmm.
like to go to the arcades. I like to hang out at the arcades. I had a lot of friends that would go to the arcades, so it was very much a social thing for me. So I definitely enjoyed that. And on top of that, back then there were so many sneaker stores within malls
Mm-hmm.
that my same group of friends that were into video games were also into sneakers, so that helped a lot. So we would also go, sneaker shopping. This was still even before they started doing things like raffles and lineups for stores.
Yeah.
So there was a little bit before that. I'm a bit older, so I graduated in the year 2000. So I'm a little
Mm-hmm.
bit older.
I don't think. Wait, when did I graduate? I mean, high school. You graduated high school in the year 2000.
Yes.
Okay. All right. That dates me. That dates me maybe like I graduated in 2004. So I'm like not that far behind from you, maybe. But yes, I understand. The being a mall rat was actual thing. Like it wasn't.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and it was you were if you were cool, you had all the friends at the mall, then you basically ran the joint, or hanging in the food court just like all the time and stuff like that.
Things were
So
different back then, man.
for sure. How did you and your friends get into sneakers? Like, were you on the forums during this time, or was it more of like the San Diego sneaker scene?
Oh man, it was so much easier to get into sneakers. Like it was even before like collecting, right? We were influenced because we lived the '90s era of basketball. We would see what is on the feed of the players. We would get the East Bay catalogs, and we would
Oh
look at them
yeah.
in school. And just going to the mall, you see what's coming up next. You see what's new. Foot Locker and I would say Foot Locker and Foot Action did a great job back in those days, letting people know what was coming out next.
Hmm.
So I think it was just a good time to be. It was very easy, impressionable youth to be able to follow what's going on in the sneaker world. So I would say like whenever new stuff came out, all you got to do is walk by the window and you'll be like, damn, they got these now, and that was it.
Did you have to like camp out during this time when you were a kid?
My first time I camped out was oh god, what year was that? Maybe we could look it up on the internet, but it was when
Uh,
the Defining Moments package came out.
okay.
So
Which
that was the
one?
very first time, the very first one, the
Uh-huh.
gold box, the 11s. It was the 11s and the 6s.
Uh-huh. And
Yeah, the original DMPs. Was that 2005?
it was, I will tell you, it was 2006.
2006. Okay, so that was the very first time I lined up, and that was an overnight lineup.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the first time I lined up for anything. We didn't get it. There was like a riot that broke out. The cops had to come in, but that was my first like wild experience of trying to get a sneaker, and then trying to go on the internet to be able to get them as well.
Oh
So it was pretty
man,
wild.
that sounds crazy. Especially if like when the fight breaks out, you're just kind of like, eh, it's like I don't know how to explain it more than, but I'm pretty sure everybody knows where it's just like, all right, hopefully they don't shut this down. You can fight,
Yes,
just move down
it's
that way.
it's exactly because you're thinking the whole time. You're like, I can't leave. I don't want to lose my place in line. It's one of those. It was really weird.
Did you like so like what do you guys had a plan when you were like with your friends, like what's the plan, like oh you guys pull up, everybody
Oh
pulls
yeah,
up at the
yeah.
same time.
It was mob deep, and then that increases our chances of getting the sneaker, of course. So
Hmm.
even our friends that weren't going to buy it for themselves, they're like, I'm down to line up with you guys and just hang out, and that's what we did. That's what we tried, and it didn't work because everyone else had the same plan.
Was so like how do you explain that to your parents, like yeah guy I'm gonna go, or was it like I'm just gonna go sleep over at my friend's house type of
No,
thing?
they got it. They understood it. They understood how. I mean, because at this time there were reports on the news, like
Hmm.
kids are lining up at the mall for the next Air Jordan sneaker, and yeah,
Hmm.
I mean, it was one of those things where they saw it and they understood it. My parents
That
talked news pretty religiously, and we're like, oh shoot, there's a release this weekend. I better line up. I'm out.
man, that's lucky. I remember trying to explain that to my mom one time, and she was like, "You're gonna what?" And then it was
Yeah,
just
exactly right.
yeah, like the idea of sleeping on the street. Like she's like, "You're not homeless. You have a home." Like that's like the way it goes into. I'm like, no, I'm trying to get these sneakers. So I never really was a big into camping out until later on, where I tried it out, and it just went so bad that I was just like, I'm never gonna do this again.
Yeah. Again,
The
I don't. I mean, I don't line up anymore. But
mhm.
just thinking about those days is kind of crazy. I mean, we do all our lineups on the internet nowadays.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, we lose out on the cool stuff like the conversations and the meeting of
Oh
new
yeah,
friends because of that.
yeah, and
But
everyone
yeah,
acts some kind of way online. You know, there's no human interaction. Human interaction is important for like for especially for these younger kids to just kind of figure out how not to be an idiot or a jackass.
yeah, for sure. I mean, it's super interesting in terms of just like how the internet has now become the stomping ground for everything. Like it doesn't matter what kind of subculture you're into or whatever's your favorite niche, right? You're just like, all right, how do I get into this? And it's just basically like, all right, there's a Reddit for this. All right, now I'm part of this Reddit, and that's it. It's not, it's not like go to the store, make friends with the manager, like I feel like what's coming back with that, I don't know if you're into Warhammer. I feel like Warhammer, like Magic the Gathering is starting to pick up and do that more. Or even fighting game community too, because when I tried to go pro in Smash, which ended up really bad because I was terrible. Once you start playing kids that play this for real, and you're a person with a 9 to 5 that can only play at the end of the night, it's like, yeah,
Things get real quick, and you start
yeah,
thinking like, damn, maybe I should just enjoy it for and enjoy it how it is, right?
yeah. All right, so you grew up in San Diego, sneaker scene in San Diego. I don't know much about it. Is there like boutique shops that you would frequent? Or was it just strict only big releases at malls?
There were big releases in malls, but there were a lot of mom and pop sneaker stores as well. There was a famous one that everyone called Chinaman up in
Mm,
downtown San Diego, and that's still an iconic building. You know, a lot of people used to visit that store in particular in San Diego when they would come down from all parts of the U.S. So I
mm-hmm,
think Chinaman's was probably the closest to a mom and pop sneaker shop where sometimes they get releases early or they'd hide some in the back,
mm,
for later on. But that was one of the spots I think in San Diego. But everywhere else, it was just mostly retail stores. There were a few boutiques that opened up a little bit later on that had a lot of the tier zero accounts, the SB accounts, and stuff like that. But some of
mm-hmm,
them are gone now. So nowadays, it's just everyone has to get stuff off the internet. In San Diego, there's not that many stores. I mean, there are stores that still get stuff. There's a bunch of skate shops and stuff like that. San Diego
mm-hmm.
has a rich skating culture. I'm sure you probably know Tony Hawk's obviously from here.
Yeah.
There's just a lot that's out there right now. I want to say it's one of the better sneaker cities,
Mm-hmm,
but it's not like deep like an Atlanta or a New York or a Chicago.
mm-hmm. No, that's interesting because I definitely I'm trying to think of like SB culture because like I come from SBs. Like I don't know if you were big into SBs growing
Yeah,
up.
I loved SBs.
Yeah,
I couldn't skate for shit, but
same.
just the amount of variety and amount of references that the early SBs had.
Mm-hmm,
Love them. I had a pair for the longest time. I had a pair of the original Supreme Dunks, and those were my grails for a while. I
mm-hmm,
remember trading a bunch of sneakers and paying some cash to get those. But I think the SB Dunks, especially all the homage stuff to pop culture, like the Jedi,
mm-hmm.
Homers, right? Even the Three Bears pack, like all those stuff was just so cool. I love just seeing all that cool stuff.
No, yeah. I mean, I just recently wore my Melvins. Like I have Melvins. I'm a big Doom guy, so Dooms are my grail. So uh, the way that SB would always just like kind of skirt around things and makes like
Yeah,
just like
official, unofficial stuff,
yeah,
man. Come on, that the Heinekens,
yeah,
that was so sick.
that was so far. I love that, and the idea of just like paying homage to a lot of these things that it kind of like I felt like it put you on to things too because like I didn't know who the Melvins were. I didn't know who Dinosaur Jr. was, and then you look it up. You're like, okay, I would like the shoe. Let me understand why I should like this shoe. You know.
That's a big part of it too. It's like you get into something, you want to start learning more about it, and with SBs, you were able to learn so much because it wasn't just about the dunk, right?
Mm,
It wasn't just about skateboarding culture. It was about everything that would influence whoever helped design that sneaker or whoever collaborated on that sneaker, and they got crazy, man. I think for a long time there were the dunks just kind of took over what was popular for sneakers, and then there
mm,
was a time I want to say it was like maybe mid 2010s
mm-hmm.
where on the Nike apps when they were still doing stuff, there was no dunks at all for like a year. There
Yeah.
was like the drought, the great drought. There were no dunks and no SB dunks for a long time.
The great SB drought.
Everyone thought they were done because everyone was getting out of the game. Everyone was dumping them
Uh-huh.
super cheap. I remember seeing a pair of like dead stock ray guns, home and away for like $300, and I was like, man, I should have bought those.
No, yeah. I mean, I remember when I was first getting on the forums, and I wanted a Dooms, and I'm looking at it, and I was like, I was just talking about this recently. I was like, $200. That's too much for me. I can't do it, yo. And I was saying this too. I was like, if I had the money I have now, back in the day, I'd have everything that I've ever wanted.
Oh yeah, I think for anyone that's a collector, everyone's gonna think that way. And I mean, for me, for sneakers, for video games, for whatever, it's just like, you know
Mm-hmm.
what? I'm gonna pick up all the stuff I wanted, and I'm gonna get them dirt cheap.
All right, so like, I definitely want to hear the cross intersection of like you being as fly as you are, starting to go and immerse yourself into the fighting game community, and like, my reference is always with the Smash community first, because of like that there's that documentary with like
Oh yeah.
Liquid, forgot all those dudes. I forgot the name of the documentary, but then we also have Moment 37, which everybody knows went crazy. One of the first viral clips to ever go crazy on the
Hmm.
internet, with Justin Wong and Daigo, and this is like the anniversary of it right recently as well, right?
The anniversary just happened on August the 1st.
Hmm. But so this is all fast forward, but you wearing dope kick. I feel like did you feel out of place, or were you like kind of like, people don't know, I just beat their ass and I'm wearing Supreme SBs, like like what was it? What was the surprise? What were you thinking?
You know, I didn't really think about that for when I'm like locked in and
Hmm.
focused on playing in competitions, or when I did compete, it was all about the competition first. I didn't really think about back then. I didn't think about the fit that you're wearing, because like there
Hmm.
was no way to really swagger. You couldn't really post a picture instantly like, hey, check out my fit. That didn't exist back then.
Yeah.
There was no Instagram, there was no Twitter really yet at the time. So it was again, it's just one of those things. You just go to the events and have fun.
Hmm.
um it wasn't until later, and because I'm a collector.
Hmm.
I feel like it's a lot easier when Twitter started becoming more of a visual platform, when people started posting photos and videos more. Same thing with Instagram, when they started posting videos as well.
Hmm.
It was a lot easier for people to do storytelling and talk about the things that they like, and that's when I really started embracing it more. Like, I'm into a lot of different things. I'm going to start talking about it even more. I'm going to start uh, kind of bridging the association between gaming and the things that I like to collect, like
Hmm.
sneakers, like arcade sticks and stuff like that. So for stuff like arcade sticks, it's a lot easier. But for sneakers, people will kind of raise an eyebrow and they'll be like, "How are sneakers related?" And even if you go back, like even way back, there are so many referential things. Like I kind of put gaming and anime kind of in the same bucket. There's
Hmm.
a huge crossover there. Like for example, one of the demographics that we call out when we talk to our partners at Evo is 4 out of every 5 people that go to Evo is a consumer of anime.
Yeah.
So again, there's just a huge crossover. So even then, like looking at sneakers, there have been so many things that are ingrained with comics, manga, anime, video games, and that's still like since the late '90s, early 2000s. Uh, and knowing that it's there, and that these guys that are into sneakers or create sneakers are also fans of everything else, it just one of those realization moments where you're like, oh man, we're all geeks, we're all the same.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things, like you just like look at each other and you just know, you do the nod.
I because like, yeah, I remember growing up and everybody being like, "Oh, you're a nerd" or whatever. I don't even think it was nerd. It was just like, "Oh, you're corny. You watch anime, you read comics, you read mangas or whatever these books that you're reading." And but then when it came to sneakers and people knowing everything about Jordans and Nike basketball, now you're not considered a nerd. Like, I'm like, make it make sense.
Different slices of the same cake, man. It's wild.
It's absolutely wild. And so, like, as you're wearing kicks, they're like, is it like people pull up and you'll see you and be like, oh snap, you got those? Like, does that happen at like a Evo, or like early days at local tourneys and stuff like that?
Yeah, it happens. It happened. It happened a lot at Evo, where people would be at the event, and they'd be like, "Oh, you got these and these," and then
Mm-hmm.
someone else will point at the other guy next to him, like, "Oh, he got those," and you're like, "Oh shit, those just came out." Even recently, like I started going to a lot of events overseas, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the U.S. would get pairs early, or Asia would get pairs early of certain
Mm-hmm.
sneakers. They have different kind of release calendars, and I'd go to an event wearing a pair of shoes that aren't even out in that region yet, and then people would be like, "Oh man, you have these. Look, can I take a picture of your foot?" I'm like, "Sure, that's weird, but that's cool. Let's do it." Yeah, it'd
But
be those kinds of experiences. But yeah, it's just cool. There's people that are, and I'm one of these people too. I'm guilty of it as well. When
mhm.
people are walking around, um, I look at their feet. I look at
Yeah.
what they're wearing. It's just one of those things that my eyes gravitate towards what they're wearing on feet. Then I look at them. I'm like, oh, it's so and so.
No, yeah. I feet, what is it? Feet contact before eye contact or something like that.
That's what people say about us sneakerheads, right?
Yeah, that's for sure. So then it's very crazy because like I definitely wanted to talk into you getting to create the Air Force One, moment 37, and uh like what is like did you ever think in your wildest dreams that you would ever have a moment like that where collecting sneakers for this long, being part of the community, and you're like, I'm gonna actually have a chance to make my own, or a chance to cater to this one moment that were you there when that happened?
So I didn't. It was a wild moment.
Yeah.
Been trying to get the attention of Nike and
Hmm.
Jordan Brand for a very, very long time. Back when I used to work for a company called Mad Cats. When I was at Mad Cats, I used to
Yeah, the
uh,
controller company.
design controllers, design
Hmm.
arcade sticks, and then also help manage some of the sponsored players that we had at the time, which includes Daigo, who
Hmm.
I'm sure a lot of people know Daigo, one of the greatest players of all time. So I originally pitched an idea to Nike and to Jordan Brand about, would you guys ever consider collaborating with a pro Street Fighter player or a pro fighting game player? And I wanted them to see if they would be willing to support Daigo.
Hmm.
So I had these conversations early on, and one of the execs at Nike actually responded to me and said, "Hey, we should explore this idea." But there was a lot of back and forth. I ended up visiting the campus a few times,
What's
many
that
years.
like? What is
That
that like?
going to the Jordan building, seeing the collection of the all white Jordans,
Hmm.
and just being given the tour, and them talking about the rich history of Nike and their athletic program and just sneakers in general, because you could tell, like, when you go in there, that these guys, they love what they do. So
Hmm.
that experience was insane. That was absolutely insane. So I got to give a shout out to my man Retro Kid, who was there at the time when I had that tour, and King Magic. Those guys were obviously, like, for me, there were big influences in the sneaker industry for me to keep pushing and trying to do something. So yeah, nothing happened. I was pitching it for a long time, and this was, I would say, around 2011 timeframe.
Hmm.
But when I got laid off from Mad Cats, a little bit later on, maybe it was 2016, I remember still keeping in touch with a lot of people within the video game industry, and a lot of them were obviously into sneakers. By this time, 2016, you obviously saw there were so many video game related sneakers already out.
Hmm.
Um, you know, and it just kept coming year over year. There were, like, new things. Back I think it was 2005 when it first started, where you would see, like, the PlayStation Air Force Ones.
Yeah.
Uh, there was another PlayStation Air Force One that was released at E3. I think it was 2017 or
Hmm.
2016, one of those years.
Yeah.
But there were obviously
Then you got
a
the
lot.
PGs. You got the Paul
I got the
Georges.
light up Paul Georges. I got the
Yeah.
PS5 ones. Yeah,
Hmm.
and just anytime something related, even like the Adidas Xbox sneakers that came
Yeah,
out.
I was just gonna mention those too.
I
Yeah.
have I have like almost every video game sneaker that you could think of, except for the Travis Scott Dunks.
Oh
But
yeah, the
those are super
PlayStation.
limited. Those are
Yeah.
super limited.
So
So
Travis Scott, I know you listen to Travis Scott. You're a big fan. Hook up Mark, man, and then hook me up too.
yeah, hook us up. We'll give you guys our sizes later.
Yeah.
But just being a fan of all that, I remember having a specific meeting with somebody who's no longer with Nike, but I want to give him his flowers as well. Hayden,
Hmm.
and he talked to me about exploring wanting to do something with the community. And we had a few conversations, and eventually ended up working with the sneakers team to talk about what is something that would resonate with the community. And one of the things I thought about at first was, it has to be something that is instantly recognizable from somebody in the fighting game scene, and it's one of those if you know moments. And it was
Hmm.
definitely moment 37. So that was the idea I pitched to them initially, and that's really how the conversation started about how do we pay proper tribute to this community and do things right. Obviously, the
Mm.
release didn't happen the way we hoped.
Yeah.
It ended up in outlets. It was kind of a stealth release because of the pandemic. Things didn't end up turning out that way. But, as scrappy as the fighting game scene is, the people that wanted pairs ended up getting pairs. I remember having to go to StockX to get a few pairs
Mm-hmm.
for Evo 2002. And I just wanted to make sure that Daigo and Justin got a pair. And then I also had
Yeah.
an extra pair for them to sign. Because obviously they're the two people that helped make that moment happen. They're the two highlights, the two main characters of
Mm-hmm.
that story. But just the fact that I was able to work with the sneakers team, working with a few of the designers to help kind of do the storytelling for the sneaker and all the different elements. And I'm sure you've seen it. And I kind of talked about it online, but
Mm-hmm.
it looks like a normal Air Force One from the outset. But there are so many elements that tie it to Street Fighter 3 and to Evo Moment 37 in general. You have the canvas from Ken's gi, you have the satin from Chun-Li's outfit, you have the sparks from the Parry animation, you
Mm-hmm.
have the input from Moment 37's Parry
Mm-hmm.
sequence as well. And then just so many different things that are elements of the design, but are also a nod to the culture and to the community, and how that moment became such an impactful moment. And a lot of people talk about that moment. They watch it and they don't realize that it's widely recognized as the greatest esports or competitive gaming moment of all time. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't think many things even come close.
No, I agree. I think that when I remember I downloaded it from Kazaa.
You had to download it. That's how old it is. It
Yeah.
wasn't on YouTube yet. You had to download it.
I downloaded it on Kazaa,
Yeah.
and then I remember watching it like 7 times in a row, just that day. Like I was just and then I was doing the like you doing the parry motions and
Yep.
stuff.
Yep.
Oh man! And then I remember because now that moment went so crazy, you're able to do that challenge. I think it was in Street Fighter 5 or was it 6? I think it was
So
6.
in Street Fighter 3 Third Strike Online, they
That yeah.
re-released it for PS3 and for
Mm-hmm.
360. In the Parry trials, they had a Moment 37 trial, and it was just you trying to do the exact same moment that Daigo
Mm-hmm.
did, and they put that in the game, which is awesome. So that was obviously they immortalized it, or
Yeah.
Capcom officially immortalized it. And there's merchandise out there, official merchandise licensed by Capcom, in reference to that moment as well. So I mean, they obviously know. Everybody knows about it.
No, that moment is so crazy. I mean, I don't like I asked before. I was like, I don't know if you were actually there when it happened.
Oh yeah. So I was
Oh,
there during
uh-huh.
Moment 37. Actually, on my YouTube and on my Twitter, it's my pinned tweet.
Mm-hmm.
I had an alternate angle that I found in some of the tapes that I had lying around. I think it was around 2001. I was like, "Hey, check this out!" And it's actually the best quality version of the moment.
Oh
And
yeah, that I watched that. Yeah.
you could hear the audio of people in the crowd, and my friend that was recording it, you could hear him wilding out there. You could hear me as well in the clips. I don't think I called out publicly what I said, but I definitely said a lot of shit. I was talking all kinds of shit during that moment. It was just wild. It was crazy because you think about it. That moment there was like maybe 200 or 300 people in the room, and then
Mm-hmm.
it's been seen by millions and millions of people.
Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure if I look it up right now on YouTube, there's probably 18 versions of it, and they each have like 50 million views each or something like that. So
Yes,
yeah.
I'm positive.
What? So I'm curious because what what is your career path? Because you talked about working at Mad Cats. You're currently head honcho at Evo right now. and so did you go to school? What did you go to school for? And how did you get there? And then I have maybe like 7 more questions after
For sure.
that.
So I went to school for journalism. I went to college for journalism.
Yeah.
I really wanted to write about video games. So that was my first love into the game industry, and my first entry. I started going to E3, which was in LA at the time when I was very young, and I ended up, writing about video games. I liked it, and eventually I got a job at Mad Cats where I started working on gaming stuff and controllers and eventually
Mm-hmm.
arcade sticks. And it was a full circle moment for me because it allowed me to do stuff that I really enjoyed, which was fighting game related, and I
Yeah.
was able to give back to the community. We started sponsoring events. We started doing more events with players and sponsoring players as well. So after that happened, I got laid off. And in 2016, I immediately joined the Evo team, where I
Mm-hmm.
kind of spearheaded business development for them. I still do. I'm still head of business development, and really kind of transforming the event from a competition to have more elements that are related to what the publishers do. So inviting
Mm-hmm.
the publishing companies, the developers out to the event to make announcements at the event, which was crazy at the time because we're asking them to pick a community event, pick an Evo versus things like E3 versus things like
Right.
Comic-Con. And a lot of them did. They still did multiple events, but they would bring things to Evo because they knew that's where their core community and their core fan base was.
Mm-hmm.
So being the head of business for Evo, eventually I came across the team over at Sony Interactive Entertainment, the PlayStation team,
Mm-hmm.
and they had this crazy idea of wanting to acquire Evo. And that ended up happening in 2001 officially.
Wow.
So we're now jointly owned by RTS, and which is a spinoff of Endeavor,
Mm-hmm.
and SIE Sony PlayStation. So we are in a crazy timeline, which I never expected to get into when I was first started going to Evo. I've been going to Evo since the very first one,
Mm-hmm.
and it's been a
Ima-
wild ride.
I was,
It's been a
I was,
wild ride.
that is crazy. Like, because I remember I used to work at GameStop. Like, that was my first job, GameStop. And so I remember being like, we would have these conversations and be like, do you think esports could be a thing? And we would have several conversations after this, after that. And it would be like, and then we'd come up to the conclusion of like, nah, it's not going to happen. And then you'd see, Halo championships. You start seeing that. You start seeing, Evo start the fighting game community. And you in New York, it was always this like you had to find it or somebody had to tell you in order for you to find it, right? And now you can look up, what's the one that they have out here? Battle for something battle. Something I forgot the name of the tournament that they have here. But and then Evo's the big stage or like CEO, in Florida. In my wildest dreams, I never thought esports can be this, this thing that people can actively practice at, become, and actually win money.
Yeah, and
Right.
it's not just about because people think about esports, they think about just the pro gamers themselves. It's an
Mm-hmm.
industry where people can find work in, whether it's through production,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's through different organizations that are part of the ecosystem. There's a lot of different career paths within gaming and competitive gaming and fighting games. Sure, it's a rough industry now. I mean, I'm sure you guys see a lot of the headlines of major companies doing layoffs within the
Mm-hmm.
gaming industry. The thing is, there's always new games coming out. So there's always going to be cycles where people have to kind of adjust and adapt to where they're at. And companies will find like, what they need to support and how they can support. So
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those things that comes in cycles and comes in waves. And right now I could confidently say this is the most, I mean, I think the proof is just with the most recent Evo with fighting games in particular. This is the most competitive fighting gamers that we've ever had. We had over 10,000 unique competitors,
100%. Yeah.
and even more than the competitors, this is the first time we've had more spectators and viewers at the event than actual competitors. That's never happened before. So it's actually crazy to know that the people that are consuming fighting games, not just competing, there's a lot more than there have ever been. And
No,
there's
yeah.
still a lot more new games that are going to be coming out. So I'm really really looking forward to the future.
No, yeah. I'm very excited for it. I'm definitely going to try to start picking up more fighting games again,
Yeah.
so I
You know
can
what's
compete at
crazy?
something.
This
Yeah.
was a highlight year for me because we had
Uh-huh.
a sneakers drop at Evo.
Mm-hmm.
We had a sneakers drop at Evo, and I never thought, just being a sneakerhead, being someone that's really into the culture of sneakers, that we would have an exclusive drop at Evo.
Mm-hmm.
That's wild. I can't believe that
It's
happened.
It's absolutely wild, and it's funny because I definitely wanted to bring it up. I find it interesting. I don't know if you followed a lot of the sneaker community that's on Twitter.
I
Uh,
do. I actually
uh,
follow quite a bit of them. I have a
yeah.
lot of friends that I've met, some through the resale community, but also
Hmm.
just people that have been collecting for a long time. Yes.
Yeah, and it's interesting because a lot of their takes was, why would they put a sneakers drop at something where they feel like there aren't sneakerheads there,
Yeah.
and I,
It's because
and
they don't know. It's because they don't
I
know.
know, and I wanted to be like, you guys do not understand. Like, I feel like if you're just on the outside looking in and you've never been to a fighting game, even if you've never seen or put on a Evo, you should know that, like, if you turn it on, like, I mean, even with your recent, like, the Tekken drop that you did of not the foam posits, the Tekken drop of like your clothes, the clothes that you put out, the king on it, which is
Oh, the
absolutely
King
fire.
outfit.
Yeah, it's so fire. But it's like, you've done drops like that where it's like you take an element of streetwear, sneakerwear, put it into fighting game community, and it's like, yeah, people gravitate to that because this is what we always seen. But some people don't want to wear a Supreme Tekken shirt. Some people just kind of want to wear a dope Tekken shirt without it being a stat like connected to that. So I think it does get lost in like on the outside looking in because everybody thinks that video game players or fighting game video game players are just wearing nothing but a brown shirt and brown pants and you know and they're just only play video games and don't go outside. But I was just last night. I was just at a console bar, so yeah, it exists.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's just I think the more you live, the more you learn. It's just one of those things. You once you go to more experiences, you find out that there's more people like you, or there's more people that are into things. And you got to think about it. The sneakers industry is a $1 billion industry. The video game industry is a $1 billion industry. There's going to be a lot more crossover than you think.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I'm so curious about this. How did you get into commentating, and was it really hard? And how did you get so good at it? Because you are amazing.
Thank you for the kind words. I got into it because it was for me just a natural thing. I was at the events anyways, and I was always talking about it. I felt like I was passionate enough about it, and I would, I tried it. And I think the first time I really started doing commentary was in 2008, and I think it just kind of blew up from there because games and game companies started focusing more on the presentation of their competitive product and how it would live on after the shelf life, after within the first 3 months of it being out on the store shelves. And they started supporting their games with national tournaments, global tournaments, and kind of their first foray into eSports. And I was there since the beginning, just offering my services to help do the storytelling for a lot of the players that were out there. It helps to know the community and know the players that are in the separate communities. So that's how I really got into it. I was at the events and I was just happy to talk about the games that I like.
Man, because I tried it one time. It was terrible. It was terrible.
It takes, it's one of those things where you just got to keep doing it. And it's like having a conversation. You don't treat, like a lot of people get lost in when they do commentary is they try to specifically call out everything that's happening. You don't necessarily have to do that because people can see what's happening. You have to tell them why it's happening or kind of form a story. This is why it's happening, or this is what should happen next, kind of thing. So it's all about having a conversation with the viewer or with your co-commentator. And that's, I think, where it helps a lot is if you have a good person that you have good synergy with and you can have a good conversation with them, it becomes a lot easier to have a conversation about the game and have the viewers enjoy it as well.
Yeah. You just made me realize it should be more pro wrestling than it is sports.
Exactly. I think, and a lot of people do take it that way. A lot of it becomes, pro wrestling, and again, it's people can see what's happening with the match, but again, the storytelling is really what elevates people's fandoms, right?
Yeah, because when you tell a story of like, I don't know, I've watched a lot of Anakin, so like Anakin when he was at the house, and you're like, yeah, him and John Ding used to go crazy for play 2-hour matches and with unlimited lives, and now it's really paying off in this match. Like, yeah, I understand it now.
He leveled up. He did the training. Yeah, there's a lot of things like that people don't get to see because they don't watch every single aspect of these guys' lives. But if you're there and you're paying attention and you could kind of tell people that and communicate that, it just makes it more incentive to kind of watch and follow along.
No, yeah, for sure. How did you get so good at like? Because you're so personable. And so where does that come from? Because you're like, even in this conversation, I feel like we're in the same room. We're kind of like talking to each other versus like, the idea of like, oh, this is like, interview, like a job interview type of thing, So I feel like you're able to maneuver in these spaces, but like you are super personable. And I feel like that's such a hard thing to create or a hard skill to achieve.
I think it's not. I mean, it's not everybody can do it, but being able to talk to people and have a conversation and just give that mutual respect and kind of find out, be interested in the conversation and just being able to again, just have that common courtesy to have a conversation with somebody and be able to know more about them. I think that's the fun thing is because when I go into conversations, whether it's recorded or whether it's in person, for me, it's all about learning more about the subject matter or the person that I'm talking to, and then trying to relate to them as well. Because more often than not, you find the benefits of that and meeting cool people and being able to vibe with them on things that you both mutually like, whether it's games or sneakers. it just makes that conversation much more pleasant. There's, I'm in a lot of conversations that I don't like. I'm in a lot of meetings that have to do with things like boring things like budgets, boring things like just things that aren't fun.
Hmm.
But when I get to engage with people that are fans and people that are like-minded, that's the fun thing. So for
Yeah.
me, have those conversations,
Yeah.
and talking about video games is easy for me. I love video games, so it's really easy for me to talk about that. So I know that's maybe not helpful if anyone's trying to look to get into commentary or into the business of gaming.
Hmm.
But again, if you're passionate about it, it becomes a lot easier when it's something that you feel like you can do because you love it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, I'm always trying to mush all the things that I'm interested in and make it my job. So
Yeah.
this is why we're here. So I want to know about, because you know, as a kid, we're growing up, and I feel like you may have maybe fell in love with the same thing that I fell in love with the same things that I fell in love with. So what is Japan like, and how does sneakers over there, and how are you
Oh,
able to, like, you know, not just buy everything up? Because I feel like that's what if I'm there, you give me 3 weeks there, I'm coming back with maybe a negative bank account, and like the Yakuza is after me for money. Like
so I first started going in Japan in 2009. So that
hmm.
was my first time going there, and I'm very fortunate that I go there at least once a year. I would say the past few years I've been there a lot more, maybe 6, 7 times a year.
Hmm.
So I go there quite a bit. I used to go once a month. So
Wow.
that just kind of gives you an idea of how often I've been there. So I've been there. I want to say close to 100 times I've been there.
Hmm.
But going there and experiencing, first and foremost, I mentioned this many times. Like, if you're into video games, if you're into anime, and if you're just into Japanese culture in general, going out there is probably one of the best things you can do, just to be able to experience that. Obviously, do it respectfully, just to take in the culture and kind of see what's out there. And now is a good time to do so, just because of how strong the USD is
Right.
in comparison to the yen. And it wasn't always like that when I started going. Early on, it was like 70 yen to one USD,
Hmm.
70 or 80, which is abysmal for the exchange rate. But now it's like it's wonderful right now. But
Yeah.
one of the things I always noticed when I was out there, especially seeing sneakers, is just people love sneakers out there too, and they love it at, I feel like, a different level. They treat it very much more as a culture than as a. They treat it much more as a cultural thing than, I would say, as a material thing.
Hmm.
And you could see this from the way they kind of curate their stores and the way that they curate their outfits in general. So I
Yeah.
feel like for them, I feel like it's probably a lot more foreign to them, because they're looking into things like the culture of the music. They're looking into things like what was the 90s basketball era like, because this is not normal to them, because they didn't live it. They didn't and it's also in a different language, right?
Hmm.
So them having to kind of learn about things and then apply it to what they like, it's different for them to experience it that way, because we lived it, right?
Right.
They're learning it and trying to live it through learning that. So
Hmm.
I feel like they come at it from a different level of, I guess, respect, and a different
Hmm.
level of appreciation. So I just feel like sneakerheads all around the world, wherever you go, whether it's Europe, Asia, particular countries like Japan, they always for me, it's always been a good vibe out there.
Hmm.
Shopping out there is insane. You could probably find anything that you want out there. You
Hmm.
just have to make sure you have the money for it.
Yeah.
The days of deals are gone. Or once the internet started becoming more and more accessible, and things like StockX started showing up, and Goat, it's been a lot harder to get good deals on things, because people kind of go by those prices nowadays,
Hmm.
and you're not going to find a deal at those stores. No, you're not. But there are times,
You gotta pop the EMP before you walk in, and then just be
yeah, it's
like,
rough. Like, one thing I will appreciate, and one thing that I do love about, like, the Western scene when it comes to sneakers, is like, you could go to Facebook Marketplace, you could go to Facebook groups, you could go on forums, you could go a lot of different places where the culture exists,
hmm.
social media even, to be able to kind of find deals on sneakers, and find others that you could either trade with, or sell things to, or buy from. In Japan, it's a lot different if you don't speak the language. It's a lot different because they don't really have that many. They don't really. They don't really have that many places like like we do. I mean, there's things like Mercari, there's things like Yahoo Auctions Japan, but those
Hmm.
are all kind of like taken, like in terms of like all the best deals are gone.
Yeah.
They don't even happen. Like as soon as they come up, they're gone.
Have you ever had like an interesting conversation where they ask you about how did they should be moving forward with something, or like in sneakers, like is this right? Am I lacing this right? Like I don't know. It's just an interesting
No,
conversation.
nothing like that. I feel like those guys are doing their own thing and they're having their own vibe. So people in
Hmm.
Japan are very obviously respectful. They usually keep to themselves. They don't really, they're not really as outgoing in terms of conversation. But I feel like unless they know you could speak the language or understand the language a little bit, then
Hmm.
they can kind of open up a little bit more. But I think for the most part, they just keep to themselves. But again, it's all about respect and it's all about the just appreciating the culture that's out there in terms of sneaker culture. So I
Hmm.
think they do a good job of maintaining that. And, it's crazy because I've seen so many people out in Japan um, that have just been out there for sneakers and shoes doing their own thing. Recently, I walked past Sean Witherspoon as he was out in Shibuya one time. I was like, oh shit,
Hmm.
it's Sean. And I haven't seen him since the Round 2 Hollywood days. So it's
Hmm.
just nice to see him out there just doing his thing because, I think he has a house out there and he has his family out there now with him too.
Wow. Oh, I didn't even know that he moved out there like that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
He's like, all right, forget it. I'm out of the U.S. I'm
yeah.
good.
He's doing a lot more stuff out there in terms of the with the Japanese companies and the Japanese brands as well.
Oh yeah, that's interesting. I think that I mean he's great. I've met him a couple times at Complex Con, and he's been always been nice to me. So yeah, hopefully future guest one day. We'll see.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. The I did have a question, so my boy wanted me to ask you a
Yeah, what's
specific
up?
question. Uh, he asked me to ask you. Do you have a favorite pair of fictional shoes or sneakers from a video game?
Oh, a favorite pair of fictional shoes. So shoes that don't actually exist.
Don't actually exist.
So, oh man, I think they do exist now because someone made a fan made version of them. But there
Are we
was
both
this.
about the Homer shoes?
No, no, no. I'm not
Oh,
thinking
okay.
about. I'm thinking about the ones that were in Doug. So the Nickelodeon
Oh
cartoon
yeah,
Doug.
yeah.
I think somebody tried to make those and they sold like a limited amount of them. So there was the sneakers that were in Doug. Um, I can't think of any other fictional sneakers that really resonated with me like I wanted them. But I would say it was probably that pair, but definitely not the homers. No,
You don't like the Homer
nah,
shoes? I forgot the name of the Simpson shoes. Somebody actually made them, and it was like I was like, all
yeah,
right, they cool.
yeah. I
They
remember
look
seeing
cool.
that. It was pretty recent too. It was like within the last few years, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it was like last year, something like that. But I was like, all right, those are cool. The idea of now we're living in this world where now the idea of fake sneakers, but not like I'm talking about like now I'm talking about reps. I'm talking about fake shoes that are made up in shows and TV shows can actually be a reality. I mean, the first one was always like the mag. I remember everybody being like, imagine if the Air Mag actually exists for years, and then we finally got it,
Yeah.
and I didn't have $10,000, $15,000 to pay for them. So
I mean, they still command such a high amount, whether it's the original release or it's the later release with the auto lacing. They're still super expensive, super sought after, super limited. So yeah, I mean, if you're a big Back to the Future fan, I feel for you.
I'm a huge one.
Yeah.
So we're going down to the end of the podcast. I asked one last question, and that deals with a little bit of visualization.
Okay.
So I want you to think back to what your younger self, young Mark, about to open that box of the Jordan 11s IE, and now you're you transported back in time behind your younger self. What would you tell your younger self as he opens that box?
What would I tell myself, my younger self,
Mm-hmm.
as I'm opening the box?
As you open in the box.
I think I'll keep it very simple. Just
Mm-hmm.
always make sure you have some fresh socks too. That's it. I don't want I don't want to spoil it. I feel like young MarkMan had a good life and he should go about it unobstructed.
Mm-hmm.
So
I love that.
I'm gonna keep it that way. I
I
wouldn't
love
change a thing. I wouldn't change a thing.
That's great, man. Yeah, I mean, look, your journey is amazing. It's inspiring. I love being able to have this chat with you. But let everybody
You know,
know where to find you.
you know what?
No.
I wasn't sure, and I wasn't. sure what to prepare for the show. I wasn't sure if
Yeah.
you wanted me to have some kicks ready to show off or anything like that. So I had some, but I wasn't sure if you were going to call me up like, hey, what's your favorite sneaker or what your favorite,
Nah,
top
this is
five
a
or
little
anything
bit.
like
I
that.
mean, but if you want to pull out something you want to show, we can show a little bit.
Oh, okay. I want to show
Yeah, yeah,
you something. I want to show you
yeah.
something just because I talked about it for a long time.
Hmm.
I was thinking long and hard recently, and I kind of want to know this from you too. What are
Hmm.
your top three sneaker silhouettes?
The dunk, obviously.
Okay,
I'm a
Dunk.
big dunk guy.
Yep.
Uh, Jordan 3, no, Jordan 4,
Okay,
dunk, Jordan 4, and it's tough. It's
that
tough.
is tough because you're
Yeah,
limiting yourself. You're limiting yourself.
I am. Dunk, Jordan 4. Jordan 4 is my favorite Jordan of all, like the Jordan model. And
Okay.
then I would say the kind of want to say Jordan 1 or
Okay.
the Air Force 1.
Ooh, that's tough. So you have like four. You
Yeah.
have four.
If you
Okay.
give me
Okay.
4, I'll use that.
I respect that. Okay, so mine was very close. So my favorite of all time is the Jordan 11. It's
Hmm.
actually the Columbias are my favorite shoe, um, and then the Jordan 1, and then it was a toss up between the Dunk and the Air Force 1. But I feel
Hmm.
like the Air Force 1 has kind of won me over recently. I feel
Hmm.
like the panda craze just killed the Dunks for me.
I mean, like, yeah, but like when it comes to the dunk, right? I'm such a big fan of the shoe because I'm flat footed. It's a perfect shoe for flat feet. I've never really had any problems with the fours. Pinky toe killer all the time until recently for me.
Yeah.
The threes are probably the most comfortable shoe. But I feel like you were only relegated to like a couple colorways like that Almamineers or the bread colorway, black
Thank
cement
God the
colorway.
black cements are coming back.
Yeah,
Whew.
yeah,
Need
yeah.
a refresh, right?
For sure. I never owned a pair, but my first threes is the shoe that got me out of dunks.
Okay.
It was fire red threes, and I love them.
Oh, they're great. Those are
There's
great. I have a fresh pair still. I have a fresh pair of everything except for the black cement. So I'm waiting for the new pairs to come out.
you
But
gotta.
as I was talking, I did want to show you something because I think you've
Mhm.
seen some of these. Let me change my angle. Give me 1 second. Can you see that?
Okay. Yeah, yeah,
Give me 1 second. Let me grab these kicks.
yeah. Okay. I'm gonna need a second angle.
Okay, I'm back.
All right.
So when I was first talking to Nike and we were talking about this project. So
Mm-hmm.
this is the Moment 37 Air Force One, right?
Yeah.
So we were first talking about this project. When they first told me they wanted to do an Air Force One, I was like, man, why an Air Force One? I wanted to do a Dunk or a Jordan One or something like that.
Uh huh.
But after working on an Air Force One and actually remembering the things that I collect, it made me appreciate the Air Force One a lot more. Because I started thinking about I love the Sakura Air Force Ones, I love the linens,
Yeah.
I love the snakeskin ones that
Mm-hmm.
came out, and then of course now that these came out, I fell in love with them again. I think some people will think it's maybe corny or cheesy to like really love something that you work on, but the team did such a great job. I really, really fell in love with it.
Oh yeah. I
So,
still need a pair. I need a pair bad. Size 13. Somebody. Anybody.
oh, that's a tough size. That's a
I
tough
know.
size.
Yeah.
We'll see what we can do. That's a tough size. But this is coming out, and just tying it all into video games. But this is
Mm-hmm.
coming out again, and I just wanted to show it off because this is one of my loves. The ones that I
Wow. You actually own a pair. That's crazy.
oh yeah, I own a pair. Own a pair. This is the original ones, the ones that were limited to 150 pairs. But the PlayStation Air Force Ones, I absolutely love this sneaker. When I saw that old picture of Kobe looking at them, like, God damn, this was the one.
Crazy.
And I love, again, like I said, I love this pair. I was thinking about wearing them this year because it was getting to that age, like I should
Mm-hmm.
wear them before they just crumble.
Yeah.
But
You
then they
gotta.
announced that they were coming out, and I was like, you know what, I can't
I
wear them
mean,
anymore. I'm gonna keep these on ice.
until I see an official announcement from Nike, I'm not gonna believe it.
Man,
Unless
because
you know.
man, I can't say anything. I'm gonna put these away now. I can't say anything. But yeah, that's all I wanted to talk about.
Where's
Man,
the white phone posit? I want to see it.
what makes you think I have one?
Because you are one of the co-creators of the shoe.
I actually didn't. Juan Huerta, the designer of the shoe, he worked on it very closely with Michael Murray and the tech and project team.
Uh-huh.
I just helped with the launch of it. So
Okay. Well, you're one of the launchers.
they've announced that there's more coming later this year.
Yeah.
So just pay attention. You might hear more information on it soon.
I mean, look, I won't have the money for it. I just wanted to see it.
Man, sneakers are expensive, man.
These are so expensive. So I mean,
dude, I'm so glad you got a pair. They're beautiful. Like, there's a lot of little elements there that people really haven't talked about, maybe because they're not intrinsic with
they don't know
with the thing. Because so usually that kind of eye stay area for the foam posits, it's usually kind of like a nubuck or suede-ish material.
Right, yeah.
So it's a leather material on here because it's supposed to match the collar of Kazuya's jacket. So that's when they used leather on there, I was like, oh my god, they paid attention to his outfit. So Juan did an amazing job. Even the heel part, the inner lining being the deviled eye is crazy as well, and you can kind of feel it there. It's kind of like a satin feel.
Yeah,
it's on point, man. The design is crazy. I hope a lot of people that get these, they get to kind of appreciate it. If you look at that 8 logo on the tongue as well, it's the devil eye too. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's the devil eye that shows up on Kazuya's forehead. It's nuts.
It's wild. The shoe. I mean, when I opened the box, I was like, "This is amazing! I can't believe I got this pair." So
it's iridescent too. So the color is kind of iridescent, and then it has a little bit of the crackle from like the croc leather that he has on his jacket. But then it also has the kind of reflective 3M as well that you can see. But man, it's a neck breaker for me. I love that sneaker.
I love this shoe. And then I mean, this is my first foam. It was my first foam posit.
Break them in well.
Yeah.
Break them in well.
I heard they take a little bit of a time.
Once you get there.
Nah, yeah, for sure. But let everybody know where to find you.
Oh, so everybody, if you want to find me, I'm MarkMan23 on Twitter, Instagram, and Twitch. I think that's the only place you can find me. Most of the places, yeah. But I'm MarkMan23 pretty much everywhere.
Nice.
And I always talk about video games, retro games, sneakers very often, and just try to live my life as an old man that appreciates cool stuff.
Lots of Japan trips. Lots of pictures of Japan trips.
Yeah, I'm gonna be there for a while. So if you are interested in Japan or you have any questions about Japan, hit me up while I'm there in September and October.
Oh, I've got tons of questions. You will be getting hit up.
There you go.
And then, you know where to find me. I am Who Is Haas on all social medias. Follow the podcast on My First Kicks Pod. Follow the podcast on My First Kicks on YouTube. And if you were listening to this, just know this is an actual video. Go to YouTube, hit that like, subscribe button, and, hit me up if you have a My First Kick story, myfirstkickspod@gmail.com. And for everybody out there, what we say each week, wear your kicks. Peace.